Random House Audio presents The Anatomy Lesson by Rene Siegal. Read for you by Adam Alexi-Malle, Peter Altschuler, Emma Jayne Appleyard, Hannah Curtis, Gildart Jackson, Bruce Mann, and Steve West.
Dumb integuments teach. Cuts of flesh, though dead, for that very reason forbid us to die. Here, while with artful hand he slits the pallid limbs, speaks to us the eloquence of learned Tulp. Listener, teach yourself, and while you proceed through the parts, believe that, even in the smallest, God lies hid. Caspar Barlaeus, 1639.
Author's Note. I knew Rembrandt's masterpiece, The Anatomy Lesson of Dr. Nicholas Tulp, as a child, for a print of it hung in my father's study, but I never knew its title or its origins. During an art history seminar in grad school, I was assigned to read a painting, that is, to unravel the narrative within it. We were allowed to pick any painting, and as my professor clicked through slides of potential examples, it showed up on the screen, and I thought, that one. I'll finally find out the real story behind that painting. I moved to Amsterdam, drawn by the idea of writing a novel about a dead man in the painting, Adriaansoen, or Aris Kind. I had a grant to research the period and to walk the streets and absorb the sights of Rembrandt's world. I lived in a house built in 1624. I worked at an office that was once the warehouse for the Dutch West India Company. Horses clip-clop through the still cobbled byways of the old centre, now packed with international sightseers, who, if you squint a certain way, could be sailors and traders. And in Amsterdam's city archives, I was able to find the complete dossier of the crimes committed by a recidivist thief named Aris Kind. One afternoon when I was sitting in front of the original Rembrandt portrait in the Maurits house in The Hague, I looked at the nearly naked corpse on the dissection slab, and I thought, before he became the centerpiece of this anatomy lesson, someone had cared for that man. Someone had touched that body, loved that body. That someone was a woman. I named her Flora, and that's where my story began.
Chapter 1. Hanging Day. The Body. At the first toll of the Vesterkerk bell, Adriaanzoon bolts awake in a dank stone jail inside Amsterdam's town hall. He is shivering and sweating at the same time. Shivering because winter gnaws through his meagre leather jerkin, sweating because of the nightmare out of which he's just awakened. What he remembers is no more than an assemblage of symbols: a dog, a wall made of doors, an old woman with a pail full of sand. But fear is pounding through him insistently, demanding he return to sleep to see out the dream. There is the promise of solace through one of those doors, and a bed to lie on, something tells him. But his eyes will not close again. His other senses are already registering the day. Horses' hooves tromp in the puddles somewhere nearby. There's a whinny and the sound of clacking steel on cobblestones. The street, which he can see only through the tiny window, is glistening from last night's downpour. The air smells of mineral soil, sweat, and piss. He crosses himself before remembering where he is, then glances around nervously in hopes that no guards have seen this. He presses his calloused palm through his coarse hair and slumps against the cold wall. There's only his cellmate, Joop van der Geen, the fishmonger killer, still asleep on the plank against his own wall. Aris wipes his sweat from his brow with his left hand, then rubs the stump over its bloody bandages, stifling the throbbing of the limb which pulses with every heartbeat. "That's all right now. Easy there," he says, massaging the limb. Hearing the bells ringing out the final chimes of the morning hour, he slaps himself to full wakefulness. This is his last day living. Each time the bells ring, he's one step closer to the gallows. Outside there's a festive feeling in the frigid air, damp and cold as it is, with clouds that hang so low they form a ceiling over the city's tile rooftops. There's still a raw excitement that pulses like a current through Amsterdam's quiet canals and byways. Some would call it bloodlust. The streets echo with silence, hollow and expectant, like an empty tankard waiting to be filled. As dawn starts to creep across the water and the wharves from the swampy eastern marshlands, workers from the docks arrive with wood planks to build the hangman's scaffold. They drop the boards like pieces of a coffin on the square, and the hammering begins. Nearby, vendors are setting up their stalls to sell delftware, wool mittens, or fresh-baked bread to all who'll come to gawp. Tacked to the town hall door is the Justice Day schedule. R. Peinecker, age 15, will receive a birching for wilfully stealing from a tavern keeper's till. Brothel Madam S. Jayne shall be beaten upon her neck with a rolling pin for general lewdness, moral corruption, and running a house of debauchery. 3 burglary conspirators, R. Tolbeit, A. Schellekamp, and F. Knipscher, to be flogged and branded with the Amsterdam A on their chests, before being banished from the city for their brazen attempt to break into a diamond cutter's shop. A confined convict, H. Peters, shall be whipped and marked with burning spears for his violation of confinement and other evil acts, before his lifelong imprisonment is renewed. German convict E. Eisenstein, caught smoking in the Rasphaus, and, when scolded, cursed and spit at his jailers, shall have an ear sliced off. He will return to the Rasphaus to work the 12-blade saws, cutting Brazil wood for the dye works, until his hands are as good as his ears. The hanging of J. V. D. Jayne, the notorious murderer of good fishmonger Joris van Dongion. The hanging of A. Adriance, alias Aris Kint, evildoer and recalcitrant thief. Adrian Adriance, Adrian, son of Adrian of Leiden, alias Aris Kint, Hans Kint, or Arent Kint. He's used different names in different towns where he was arrested, then banished, then arrested again. Arent was his father's nickname for him, meaning eagle. These days he goes by Aris, which means nothing. It was others who tacked on Kint, or the Kid, years ago, on account of his small stature, and since he was still lithe and smooth-skinned when he committed his first crimes. Aris draws his jerkin tighter, clinging to it with his one hand, making a fist over his heart. His nightmare has already fragmented into shapes: the terrible slimness of a starving dog's back, a room of doors leading onto still other doors, his own hands painted gold, clutching a goose-feather pillow. A goose-feather pillow. Beside him, snoring, is Job van der Jayne, the fishmonger killer. By profession he is a tailor, a fact that Aris finds secretly ironic, since he has spent much of his own adult life stealing fine coats from tailors' shops. Still asleep like a babe in his mother's arms, the tailor has his hands pressed together in prayer under his pulpy jowls, his left foot kicking an invisible attacker. Idiot, thinks Aris. Still sitting, he extends his foot out toward his cellmate and nudges Jop in the ribs, not gently. "Sleep when you're dead," he says. The cellmate's eyes open, and without knowing that he's just been victim of a minor assault, he comes coughing out of sleep. His hacking continues until he sits up straight, only to emit 2 consecutive sneezes. He pulls a dirty rag out of his pocket and blows his nose profusely.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?